Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday. We're just going to do a quick sound check on the live YouTube channel as well. And before we begin, at the same time, I'd request that you please put your microphones on mute. If there is at any time that you'd like to ask a question, especially during the question answer round or whenever Akbar mentions the same, please use the raise hand emoticon, and we'll be able to take your question from there on. All right, thank you again. For those on our live YouTube channel, can you please confirm on the web chat if you can hear me? Okay, great. Thank you for the confirmation. Since it's already past 12, we're going to do a quick introduction of the session today, including the speaker, and then we will take it on from there. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Formula Bharat Academy series. This specific one is partnered with Skillshark, who's the educational partner for Formula Bharat this season. So our presenter today is Akbar Baig. Akbar will be speaking on the topic sponsorship and branding, which is branding to back your budget. He will be covering key elements of branding, how your student team can strategize for branding, understanding sponsorships and the various kinds of sponsorships out there, and basically how to hustle. How would you sell Oyster and Eskimo? So Akbar is the co-founder of Skillshark EduTech. He has also been a part of Camber Racing team during his undergrad years and has participated twice at Formula Student Germany. He has worked with the design and development of 3 Formula Student race vehicles on his team. So Akbar is a very passionate automotive engineer turned impact-driven entrepreneur, and he has co-founded this EV organization which converts conventional vehicles into pure electric vehicles. Today's entrepreneurial acumen has helped them explore various business models in the education and automotive industry. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Akbar to today's session. Akbar, please go ahead.
So, hello everyone. A very warm good afternoon. I hope you're all doing well and safe, right? Because like probably you're missing one of the most energetic part of your college. I doubt you'll be missing your college that much more than what you'll be missing your team, your labs, your design, you guys coming together and all. Because I'm glad that this particular session is going to take me back to my college days, and so I'll try my best to convey my learnings throughout the journey. So yeah, so can we get started, Kathy?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So all right. So today's topic is sponsorship, branding to back your budgets. Sponsorships is probably one of the scariest things for any Formula student team or for anybody for that sake, right? Because since I was a student, I do feel that. And yeah, but basically about me, as Kathy told, I was part of Camber Racing and fortunate to participate in Germany twice. And the best part was I got an opportunity to work hands-on, on the design and development of Aero Package, which is the direct vehicle. At the same time, corporate and business plan as well. So this particular rich exposure of being part of Formula student community has actually changed the way conventionally students think, and that is where it empowered me to attempt startups, thinking beyond just 9 to 5 jobs. And that's where one of my first tech startups was into EV conversions. which was about converting normal cars into pure electric cars. And at the same time, also there was a realization that it's important that we all have been blessed with skills, and we all should volunteer our skills for impact initiatives as well. So that's where I founded Social Feathers, and right now I'm heading Skillshark as co-founder and CEO, where we are trying to build a skill development ecosystem. So yeah, that's fairly about me. And yeah, I mean throughout this journey I happen to see and experience a lot of things, both in terms of the engineering development perspective as well as branding, PR, business development, and business models and all. One of the interesting thing was we happened to launch our vehicle in Delhi, and pitch our proposal to Mr. Arvind Kejriwal as well. So yeah, these are some of the things, right? So, yeah, no, without any delay, we'll try to understand, because it's a journey basically throughout the presentation. It's not, I don't want to make it like a monotonous one. And end of the session, I really expect to have a very interactive conversation, because that's what is going to, help you guys, bring out, what you need from me, right? So, yeah, so basically, we'll start with understanding what sponsorship is, considering that we forget what we know till now, and then we see what are the activities that make it possible, who are the stakeholders and the types, and where exactly branding comes into picture. Does a formula student team really need that? How can branding actually leverage you guys? And at the same time, like how does a student team strive to become a brand, and where does crowdfunding come and fit in? And end of the day, it's all about win-win synergies between a potential sponsor and the team, right? And while we talk about all this, it's also important that it's not straightforward. It's about hustle, a lot about hustle. Like there's no thumb rule, there's no blueprint. And of course, the last but not the least, the topic would be navigating through COVID, right? So yeah, so to begin with, let's understand sponsorship, right? The moment we hear this word, all we realize is a beautiful car with a lot of logos on it, and which sparks a lot of question. If you ask any layman, what sponsorship is all about, he'd probably say that it's about logos on cars, or it's about or it's about events, or it's about posters, or it's about featuring a particular company on a website. So these are the things. But the deep question that we all need to have is that, I mean, is getting sponsors and all, is it as cool as it appears, or what goes into it, or is it something that everybody can attempt? And if so, how do we go about it? So these are the questions that strike us, right? So let's start from the very zero, right? So like, sponsorship is basically a transaction, right? And a transaction is something that happens between two entities, right? But sponsorship specifically has the word mutual exchange of propositions, because if it is just money to money transaction, then like it's probably ATM or bank or something like that. Or if it is like money to a product sort of a thing, then it goes into the domain of sales and business development, right? But here, one of the important things that sponsorship has is that the bigger entity or the sponsoring entity actually has profound reasons to have interest in sponsoring the team, right? At the same time, when I say it's a mutual exchange, because they also expect something in return from the team, right? So that's how we can define a sponsorship is. So so this particular illustration is just to help us emphasize, because once we understand the stakeholders, once we understand how we can arrive at the common grounds based on the needs with respect to each other, and what could be those profound reasons for which a potential sponsor could actually fund or could actually support, and what could be those values, and how do we arrive with the win-win, right? So these are the things that we want to understand very deeply, from the perspective of sponsor, from the perspective of a team, and of course, with respect to all the stakeholders as well, right? So now that we understood that sponsorship is all about exchanging values between each other, and also deriving the profound reasons, right? So what could be the key activities in making this transaction successful or happen, right? will think of it in the perspective of team, because that's our priority, right? Because end of the day, we are all I mean, you guys are all team members and all, right? So firstly, it's important that you know about yourself, right? So you have to establish an identity, right? Because you know the way it was discussed in the previous slide, that when somebody looks at a car, it's not just a car, right, on which somebody wants to have his sticker, but it's actually more than that. So how do you express what's that more, what's that value? So how do you define yourself? So so it's one of the key activities that every team or anybody who is trying to seek funding or seek support have to actually spend time in understanding themselves, what they really stand for, what's their principles and all, right? And the second part is researching. While you spend time in understanding about yourself, it's equally important to understand what the potential sponsor stands for, what are his values, what do they stand for and all, right? And the third important thing is, as a team, you also need to figure out the best possible ways through which you can have a wide reach to these potential sponsors, right? And of course, last but not least, is to establish the common grounds and derive the win-win. So so these are the key activities that can actually make a particular sponsorship successful. And when it comes to sponsorship, we always think that, okay, monetary and in kind, we just limit ourselves to these two things, and that's what most of us know. But the thing is, any particular media company could be a sponsor of yours. They could A big media house can actually feature you regularly. For an example, maybe you can reach out to the best automobile magazines in India and ask them to feature, right? At the same time, like you I mean a sponsorship could also be on the basis of a cause. Like maybe if you're a team standing for environment, or for empowering engineers, empowering students, so there could be some NGO who would like to support you, who would like to extend their support, right? At the same time, hospitality. So this is one domain. And affinity programs, right? There'll be so many entities who will be interested in the target audience you fit in the demographics that you belong to, right? So identifying them, you could figure out a way they could sponsor you or support you. And of course, the merchandise sponsors. Merchandise is a basic default giveaway by any team generally, right? So how could you pitch them to be your sponsors? And of course, while you're part of designing, fabricating and all, there's so many tech companies who would like to support you by licensing their softwares. So so yeah so so the conclusion of this particular slide is that don't limit yourself to just these two words, monetary and in kind, because there's a possibility to strike a sponsorship proposal or a deal with any company for that sake possible. It's just how you pitch them. It's just how you create those common grounds. So yeah. So now let's think, like, let's dive deeper into the word brand, right? So for example, again, generally, if you ask very common people what a brand is, they'll tell it's a symbol, they'll tell it's a bunch of logos, or it's those things. I mean, all those things, right? But the thing is, of the many logos that you can see here, by just looking at their symbol, you can imagine the product behind it, or you can imagine whether that particular company belongs to a luxury segment, or to the common people or to the masses, or whether it's a hardware company. Because all these companies have strived hard to brand themselves in that manner, so that people like you and me are actually able to recognize them, right? So this is basically part of the first key activity that we thought about in the previous slides, so which is knowing ourselves, right? So branding is all about knowing ourselves, which is one part of the story, and the second part of the story is how do you make others known to it. Say for example, I've intentionally blurred this particular image. I'm sure 90% of you would have guessed the logo or the brand by now, or the company by now, right? And towards your right, if you see, there are certain attributes that I've listed, a very random ones, but I'm sure 100% of you would actually map them. What are the attributes they belong to? Like nobody remembers Red Bull by sugar water. No, Nobody remembers it by a party drink. No, nobody remembers it, by the word medicine, but they do remember it by, the word energy drink. They can associate the word adventure with it. They can associate motorsports with it. They can associate racing, youth, right? So daring. So all these things are, attributes to it. So, so now the tricky question is, like, this is a perception that we have developed, right? So right now as we speak, Red Bull is not telling that, dude, I stand for, sugar, energy drink, I stand for adventure and all, right? They without this direct one-on-one communication, we all are able to feel, right? So basically it's not it's not what we are seeing, that makes us known to all these attributes, but what they have made us understand by doing certain activities. So that's the crux of branding, right? So now it's like, see, so basically the way Red Bull communicates about itself is like, it's not just a drink, but it's a lifestyle. Any top notch sports event you find, you'll definitely find, Red Bull around, or either on their vehicles or all. So it's that they have branded themselves like that. So uh, now how do they do that? Okay, branding is the part in which they conceive what others should perceive about them, right? Now where does public relations come into picture? So public relations is the way in which is the methods they use to engage with public. Say, if Red Bull is sponsoring certain teams, then that's their PR activity to make sure that other people conceive them as somebody associated with motorsports. So these are all the things that come under PR, that emphasize what others should perceive, what you stand for. So as a Formula student team, you also should engage into certain PR activities, that should give a message to the society that yes, this is a particular team that stands for this cause, or this is what they do. These are a bunch of good engineers, or these are these are the best hustlers out there. These are the potential engineers out there. So so this is what a particular team has to try to. Right. So now coming, looking into the fact, okay, can a student team be a brand? And if so, why? Okay. So I'll tell you about myself. Back then when I joined, my college, which was SRM University back then, I was very profound about this team. Before joining the college itself, I was like, okay, there's a team that makes race cars, and if I want to be, a part of the team, like, I really have to be amongst the best. So I had this, which means, Camber Racing back then, and they still do, have successfully created their influence either through their social media activities or engagements, that yes, that is a sort of a premium team, in our college back then, right? And so that's the reason why it's important. So first thing is that if you're a brand, if you have a voice as an organization, as a team, if you have some strong points, then first thing is that it will give credibility for the team, right? Whoever goes through your Facebook page and scrolls down and see, if they find real images, if they find real humans engaging, if they find real team members, they'll get a perception, yes, this team really exists. And they just don't talk about stuff, but they actually build stuff, right? And second is that it gives you a competitive edge to attract sponsorships, right? So now, if you are successful in portraying yourself as one of the best design teams in this country or in this world, then of course the sponsorships will the sponsors would rush towards you, and you'll always have edge over others, right? And again, win the confidence of your college. And while we think that sponsorship is all about, branding is all about, to the events or companies, branding is also about your college, is also about your friends, or is also about hiring potential team members amongst our juniors. So unless you are successful in establishing a brand, you won't be able to attract the right talent to your team, right? And at the same time, one of the key parts of a branding activity is to strive towards making yourself known to the world. And you also have to strive towards having a huge fan base, right? Why not try to build a brand where upcoming 12th class students would be joining college, are actually excited to join the college because of your team, right? And let the industry know beforehand. See, you guys are building such a massive thing, right? And we are not actually leveraging the work that we do if we are not rightly communicating it to our parents. Say, for example, your parents know you personally that you're working on a project, so they'll be very excited because they know it, because you are communicating it to them. Why not communicate the same to the entire industry, right? So we have to use our brains in that manner. So the thing is, from the Red Bull case study, what we can understand is, with respect to a Formula student team, right? See, why not build a brand when you are already when you're already building a brand, right? If you actually brainstorm on branding and all, you can, the way Red Bull was selling itself beyond, just being an energy drink. Likewise, you can sell yourself, or you can, brand yourself beyond a team that just makes, race cars or participates in an event. So so this is something. And how can a Formula student team become a brand? Now let's see how. Now that we have realized how important it is, now let's see how to be that. So firstly, you need to have a story, because nobody can, tell a story about you better than yourself. So unless you don't have a strong story, it becomes hard to pitch somebody. And then of course you need to have a strategy, brand positioning. You need to understand whether we want to influence the industry, whether we want to influence the Formula student community or the alumni. And also you have to be very specific, and you also understand, you also have to understand where are your benefits and all. So, and then, of course, resilience and continuous social media engagements. You need to talk. So today you have designed a drivetrain, publish it, right? Don't disclose the design though. So talk about it, talk what's happening in your team, right? And create this urge amongst people that these guys are working on something cool, and we are eager to wait, we're eager to see what they've built, how it works and all. Create that sensation, right? And then communicate with the community, right? So unless you communicate, it's very difficult, right? Right. So basically, in short, we can say that, the way you brand yourself can actually give wings to your cars. So, and again, I understand that there could be a lot of teams here who would be new, or who would have who would have disturbances due to change in team management and all. But it's fine, because you have other ways to actually brand yourself, in case of such things. So one of the most beautiful things is called crowdfunding. So I basically called I basically believe that crowdfunding is one of the best ways to resurrect a brand, right? Maybe you're a team who want to change your narrative at once, or who want to change your thing at once. So why not feature yourself on Indigo, like on a campaign, right? Launch a campaign. So basically crowdfunding, it helps you, launch a very intense PR campaign, right? And you may raise funds, you may not raise funds, that's a different story. But the thing is, you have made your presence felt to a huge community if you have effectively communicated what you stand for through that particular campaign. And of course, crowdfunding can always be the best teacher, because when you have a deadline that, okay, this is the time frame I've got, and this is the influence I need to create, uh, 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 you know you can launch many such campaigns independent of these crowdfunding platforms. So if somebody wants to learn how to launch a campaign, they can definitely have a sprint by launching crowdfunding campaigns. So now that we have understood all these things, it's time we try to emphasize on win-win and exploring synergies, right? So we understood what A stands for, what B stands for. Let's try to see what are the values they want to exchange for each other. Like, what would a sponsor look into a team, and how would a team benefit from a potential sponsor? So we'll try to think on that. So a particular sponsor, firstly, a sponsor is also a brand, right? So because it is a brand, it also needs to do certain activities, which is public relations. That's where they could find a potential team to be one such strategy, engaging with whom it could be one of their PR activities. So that is one thing. And it's branding for them to be featured on some the project and the social media of a different entity, right? And secondly, the sponsor could have a unique, like, they generally seek out for unique target audience. So of course student teams are a community of very enthusiastic students and all. And what happens is, to a sponsorer, if they sponsor a team, they get a competitive advantage as well, because everybody is competing, and all the corporates are competing at different levels. They're competing at HR to hire the best guy. They are competing at branding to have the best brand message. They're competing at PR. So they are competing at all. So one of their competitive edge could be sponsoring a team. So and expressing support for a cause that is part of their values. Maybe if they find that, okay, maybe if they are a brand who stand for supporting or empowering skill development, or maybe if they are a brand who stand for motorsports, so they would definitely like to partner with somebody who is in that domain, right? And access to your reach. So if they feel that you have a particular reach, maybe you have for 10,000 followers on your social media pages and all. So they might find a specific interest in collaborating with you. And of course, it's a PR for them too. And most importantly, the most crucial part of this thing is, for a particular corporate, it is a silver lining between marketing, branding, PR, and CSR budgets. Because you know because this is not pure marketing, because pure marketing will not help them stand for a good cause, and their branding is just they trying to tell about themselves. PR is just spreading awareness. CSR budgets are like they are completely focusing on the good cause. But if they want a silver lining of all these things, that is where sponsorship is the ideal thing for them and the most unique thing for them, right? So these are the things that a potential sponsor would seek in a team. And let's see, team, what all does a team have to offer it in exchange of the value that either in terms of monetary or in terms of this thing they'll have. So a team, firstly, a team belongs to a university, alumni, and it itself is a team, right? So they have access to a huge community, a direct access, right? And secondly, a team individually has a social media reach. They have a strong tech expertise. They could be potential employees for the other company, and they are the team is actually building a tangible prototype that works, that competes with other teams, and that participates at a national or a global scale, right? So this is how we need to bring together the win-win for both the things, and then compile the common grounds, which will become an essential part of the proposal, right? Now, how do you build an effective proposal now that we have understood the strengths and all the stakeholders and the need of branding and all? Now it's time we think about building an effective proposal, right? So you need to have a striking story, right? Without a strong story, it's difficult to convince others, right? And secondly, when you're talking to big corporates and all, story can be the game changer, right? Say like you can just correlate with the Red Bull case study, how they've created their story or how they are projecting themselves. That has changed all our perceptions, right? So secondly, talk about your brand. You need to be very specific why you do what you do, right? And again, like define and promise your deliverables, and express your commitment. Make sure that you communicate in your proposal in line with what you're standing for. Like, it should not be like your brand objectives are different, your core goals are different. Just for the sake of getting sponsorship, you're trying to give him something out of the box. So it should match, right? So emphasize, like, one of the biggest things, the most amazing thing that you're doing is the project itself. Talk about it. And the second most important thing is the team that is actually making it happen. Without their commitment, without their milestones and all, it's very difficult to make that happen. And as a team, as a project, your accomplishments, talk about it, and keep them posted of the milestones and commitments, previous track record, and express emotions, right? See, considering all this, if you're a new team, a new story, right? You can tell that you can create a new narrative, like we are a team who started in what do you say, COVID-19 during this lockdown, and we have brought ourselves to this level successfully. So create a narrative like that. You have all the possible ways, right? And now that we've discussed about all this, there's this interesting thing called selling ice to an Eskimo, right? So generally Eskimos are living in ice. They have plethora of ice, and if you want to sell them, how do you do it? So you actually have to, give him in a very, if you give them ice cubics and then convince him that, okay, by using this you'd save a lot of time and all these things. You've actually sold him, which he already has, but uh, like with some added propositions. So when it comes to sponsorship, hustle is a major role player, right? Because you don't have a blueprint. I cannot tell you that, okay, you write this, you write this, you write this, and then you'll get a sponsorship. Nobody can tell this thing in the entire world. But you know because see, communication between two people always differs. So likewise, it's a communication, or it's an exchange of ideas, or concepts between two entities together, put together, right? So no communication can be saved across the world by any other team or any other thing. So that is the number one thing. And second is, like, network strategically. You need not talk to everyone about sponsorship. Talk to the ones who are decision makers, who are CXOs. Most of them could be your alumni. Like every alumni of yours would be part of some organization, like as a startup founder, or as in some way or the other. Since they know how you feel, since they can understand, putting themselves in your shoes, since they have been through what you have been through, if you rightly establish the relations, really treat them as mentors, they can bring in a lot more resources than we ourselves can crack, right? And reach the decision makers. Decision makers are not just the CXOs, but they could be somebody who is heading the digital marketing campaign of the entire organization, or they could be somebody who is handling the entire budgets of CSR and all those things. So they could also be your potential decision makers. And empower your entire team. So this is a shortcut. Like if a particular team is just alienating their corporate team and then pushing them, okay, yeah, you get the sponsorship, you just focus on getting the sponsorship. So that's a hard work, right? But then if the entire team is really empowered to reach others at their own levels, because you guys are, all of you are brand ambassadors of your team, right? So keeping that in mind, everyone should strive. Say for example, if there is a if somebody is designing brakes, or if somebody is designing working on composites, so as a tech team, you have like you are in the right position to strategically negotiate in exchanging the proposition, because you know what you're making and you know what he needs from you. So it's easy. So sponsorship is not just somebody's exclusive work. Of course it can be a responsibility, but predominantly everybody should strive towards it. And most importantly, it's not just about getting funds or resources for your team. More than that, if you talk to an industry expert, if you pitch him your team, if you talk about that, then you have a higher chance of establishing a personal relation with them. Tomorrow he could directly hire you because of the way you have interacted with him, because of the way you have communicated your challenges and all, right? So I insist everybody in the team should always take a lead. So they should be hungry to talk to somebody at a top level, because if you find the right guy at the right top level, he can change your game, right? So that is the other thing. And and generally it's a misconception. Okay, don't always talk to people or reach out to companies or startup founders, or for that sake any others, only to raise funds immediately, right? One possibility is that he might agree to fund you today. The other possibility is that he might not, right? But then you establish relations such that today you start talking to him, maybe for the next season. You keep him posted, you keep him engaged and all, in a manner that he is compelled to fund you, or compelled to support you or sponsor you. So you can do this thing, right? And uh, and there always exists a need, right? Say for example, when Steve Jobs was actually making was actually trying to build personal computers, nobody believed that there's a possibility that anybody would like to have personal computers, right? So so you have to analyze the needs. Sometimes I don't know what I need, right? But if you know what I need, if you can figure that out, and then tell me, dude, you need, then I might think, just like the Eskimo guy, right? At the first level, he'll think, hey, I don't need ice, I have abundant of it. And then, but then you have to tell him, right? See, this is what I have, and this will actually help you, solve your issue. So one such thing is, in a way, if you can politely convey that this is going to be an effective, marketing, branding, and PR strategy for that particular entity, it will make things easy, right? And then, of course, always play the emotional card. One of the biggest advantage you guys have is you belong to the student community, and everyone has been part of the student community, right? And it's easy to connect when you pitch that you're a student. So try to build a narrative around it, right? Like maybe you can talk like, sir, like we have reached out to a lot of people. I see that you're very proactive in supporting students and all. We are some students who have gone out of the way. We're trying to pull in our resources and trying to build a car, right? So tell them that sort of a narrative. So it's all about hustle. So there's no thumb rule, right? And the last but not the least, what you can do is you can also keep yourself updated with current affairs. Like as a brand, stand for causes. Like, okay, climate change is becoming a bigger problem, take up that cause, stand for it, right? Or if you can see, vaccination is a big problem, or COVID relief is a big problem, try to strike conversations telling them that we are good at designing, we can help you in this, because once you strike the conversations, so like one of my mentors, he actually told me that if you're talking to a person, and somehow if you're able to push him for a second meeting, then it's like 70% of the deal is closable, right? And if that same person is really interested in taking a third meeting with you, which means that he has seen something in you, right? So keeping that in mind, you don't directly pitch them that, sir, I'm coming for sponsorship. You be like, sir, you know we are doing this interesting thing, the least could be if you could take a while and see what we are up to, right? Then you have created room, right? And then slowly, you have to strategically push him, to a level where he could either immediately support you, or he could support you later, right? And coming to the last slide, which is about navigating through COVID-19. Now, this is a big challenge, not only for you students, but also for startups, for founders. Everybody in this world is affected, right? But that doesn't mean that we are deprived of opportunities. Because one of my favorite quotes is this, which is like, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right? Uh, uh, right, like you can find out opportunities. Say for example, one of the firm belief is that world has come even closer, right? Do you think people used to use laptops or Zoom or Google Meets as much as they are using now before? No, right? So so it's an opportunity for you now. Whatever you pitch them digitally, they'll be more eager to look into it, right? And again, it's the same for everyone. Everybody has come to the same level, right? There's no big shot or small shot. Everybody is trying to struggle, strive at their own levels, right? And yeah, of course, everybody has access to digital devices. I mean, there's a huge behavioral shift in the way how people used to work, collaborate, exchange ideas, and all together, right? And work from home is the new normal, right? Generally, had offices and all been open, everybody would have spent time in office and moving here and there, right? But now, since everything is just restricted to a laptop, they are bound to check their inboxes. They are bound to, check their LinkedIn messages and all, which means that there's a higher possibility of they responding you back, right? Provided you have what you ask them. But of course, this again, like, just because people would like to take an advantage of this particular thing, uh, these people will be flooded with a lot of mails. That is also the case. But this is where brand comes into picture. If you have a strong story, if you have a strong proposal, and if you can offer him something nobody could offer him, then it's bound to close, or they are bound to sponsor you, right? And this is also a time when you can reach out to people, right? Telling like, hello sir, how are you, hope you're doing well, hope your family and all is safe, build a relation, right? And probably this is the most important thing, right? right? As a team, you are a human resource, one of the best human resources that any colleges can have. As a team, you can exhibit good gestures on behalf of your entire team, right? Ki, like we are, like as a team, we are trying to volunteer ourselves a bit to help the people struggling with COVID, or help guiding them to the right medication centers and all, of course all through digitally, right? So this is the time where you can extend these gestures, and tomorrow you have a story that okay, sir, we are a team who didn't just make a car, you know nor just came together just to build a car, but as a brand we actually stood to support a good cause, and we have extended all the ways we can. Now this becomes a very strong story, right? So the other person will be compelled, he'll be compelled so much and so much and so much that if he fails in sponsoring on behalf of his entire organization, he'll personally get out of his way to support you guys or get you the right contacts. So this is how you build relations. And sixth one is like, it's time, your teams can contribute to help the society get back normal. Say if somebody is trying to, if some company or if some NGO is trying to design oxygen concentrators, go be a part of it. Tell them, so dude, we can design. I mean, let's try to build these things. Or like back then, in the last lockdown, people were struggling for ventilators and all. Right? I'm sure many of you would have attempted that. So you guys already have an edge. So prove the world that Formula student community exists, which is way more than just making cars or seeking sponsorship. You stand for a much bigger cause because of the exposure you have got, because of the grooming you have got, because of this event and all those things. So try to communicate all those things. So yeah, that's all from me. Yeah, I'd like to interact with you guys. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Akbar. At this point in time, participants will be taking in questions. If you'd like to ask a question, kindly use the raise hand feature, which is at the bottom and under reactions. So, oh, not under reactions. It should be on the bottom of your screen. So you can raise your hand and then we can, and you can unmute and ask your question. So are there any questions today? Yes, Jai, go ahead.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. I just, as Akbar sir just mentioned about networking and making our way to decision makers. So I was really curious whether you had any tips regarding how we can reach those particular decision makers in any company. Because the people that we primarily contact at the start of a proposal are the people who work, who are not that much in power, and when you ask them to connect you to somebody higher, usually that sponsorship gets lost. So any tips on that?
Right. Yeah, exactly. A very nice question. The thing is, like, in an organization, everybody is in need, but some of them could be in extreme needs, right? For example, the guy who is responsible for branding or public relations, he'll be obsessed to figure out opportunities, because he is paid for doing these things, right? It's his job to find more unique ways to extend the reach of the company, or extend the awareness of the company and all. So uh, don't try to reach out to these people. Say for example, if you're using LinkedIn, right? From an organization you may see a lot of people, but you'll see some guy who is actually trying to comment on various other posts, or who is actively sharing his company's updates and all. With that, you can draw a behavioral inference that this guy really stands for his brand, he really loves the organization, and then reach him out. And at the same time, there are founders and startup founders, right? So heavily funded startups, they'll be hard to reach out. But if you can identify the startups who are doing pretty well, who would be just on the verge of raising funds and all, if you reach them out, you know they'll be very quick at responding to you. So it's all about the research that you do about the potential companies, and what they are doing, what is their behavior, whether they are active in terms of social perspective, or whether they are active on the other way around. So that is the thing. I hope it answers.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jay. Anyone else? Manas, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I understand that it is very important to make new relations, right? But I think it is equally important to maintain our old sponsorship. So in this phase of the pandemic, how do you suggest that we hold on to our old sponsors and be continuous, gain continuous support from them?
Right, exactly. So for this, if I were you, what I would do is I'd like to analyze the situations of the people who are currently sponsoring me. I'd like to see whether they are doing well in terms of monetary, whether how things are with respect to them, how their organization is, right? Based on which I'll either try to emphasize on pushing them to sponsor me again, or I'll think this is not the right time to push them for this. But instead, reach them out, telling them that, sir, I know it's a tough time for you. It's also a tough time for us, for which we'll go out of our way to support you in this manner, right? So this is how you can, retain those uh, conversations. I mean, yeah, I hope it answers.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Manas.
Yeah.
We do have a question on the YouTube channel asking, how do we sell the need for Formula Student? Need of Formula Student for Formula Student.
Right. See, one of the like if you go to European countries, no, Formula Student, Germany, and all, right? They actually recognize the value of the entire community, right? And because of which there are companies like BMW, AMG, they're all coming and sponsoring, and they're making their physical presence felt at these events, right? uh, what I feel is ki it's a collective effort that should be done by all the teams in this country, right? Trying to build their brands in their own ways. Time and again, you have to either through articles, either through videos, or through Instagram pages, or whatever it is. But time and again, you have to do stuff until the point where the moment they see the word Formula Student on your resumes, they should be like, okay, this guy is a genius. I mean, this guy has gone out of the way to do stuff. So people really don't know now, which means that we haven't made the noise yet, that we would have supposed to make. What I feel is, this is a good time because of COVID and all, and everybody is struggling. So here you could, figure out those ways. I hope it answers.
Uh, Thanks, Akbar. From the Zoom session, are there any questions? Please do use the raise hand feature. Oh, sorry, someone sent me a chat. So Kuldeep's question is, please tell us what a first-year team should do for fundraising.
Right. So first year team should reach out to the personal contacts within the team. You might have some relatives working somewhere, or alumni who are working somewhere. Try to reach them out, because see, if you're a first year team, right, it means that your college is still old, your college is not new. They'd have alumni. Try to hunt them, see if somebody is working in Tata, or see if somebody is working in other companies and all, right? Pitch them this thing that bhaiya or sir, we're trying to build this is our first attempt to it. And try to spark the same interest from him, right? Like he should feel like, I mean, that particular alumni should feel like, oh, these guys are going out of the way, this is the time. If I extend my support, like I'll be like an angel for them. So try to establish that sort of conversation. So they are the easiest way you can reach. And because you are a new team, you also have a strategic advantage to brand in a new way, because you can tell, sir, we are not a team with a strong legacy, or we haven't been building cars throughout. Since this is our first time we are doing it, we find that your support would be of huge help for the entire legacy to continue, right? You'll be probably remembered as the first set of sponsors to start this team. So everything starts from here. And what makes it more remarkable is that these are the tough times in which we are starting, and this also gives you an edge. These are the tough times in which you went out of the way to support a team. So pitch on those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, to reiterate Akbar's point, that's a really good point. Talk to your relatives, your family, because the more you talk about your project and even exude the passion that you have for what you're doing, right? People will believe. People need to believe in you to be able to invest in you. So that's a very important point that Akbar has brought up. We have a question from Rashmi. Rashmi, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Rashmi from Style Racing, and I have a question. I don't know if it's totally relevant, but I just wanted to go ahead and ask. So, in this COVID world, if I am going to, go to a potential sponsor and ask them, can you please fund us for making a project like this? And some of them would have the argument of why should we fund you when, the world is in such a position and we could, spend the money on something else. So, how could I put my argument to them saying that this is important? So, that is where I was kind of stuck. Again, I don't know if it's totally relevant, but I wanted to ask.
It's definitely relevant. See, because the thing is, this is not a perfect world, right? Nobody understands, what you stand for and all. And of course, there'll be people like this everywhere who could say, what's the point of funding a team right now? There are more important things to do. There are more things to do. But that should not that should not limit you, right? Probably the second person whom you reach could take you positively. Probably the third person could reach you in a different way, right? So if you're trying to do something new or do something different, you'll definitely have some resistance, but you should ignore that community, and you should stick to what you stand for.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a question again on the YouTube channel. Can we sell the experience of Formula student to a company? And if we can, what will be the key point to take care of?
Right. See, first of all, when it comes to fundraising or when it comes to sponsorship, when it comes to MOUs and all those things, right? There is no can or cannot, right? As long as you can justify, as long as you can convince your stakeholders that if some NGO is working on, say, oxygen concentrator, tell them if we can help you, provided your team is rightly equipped to do that. You should not our negligence shouldn't become an hindrance for their really good cause, right? So keeping that in mind, if you think your team can stick to its commitments, stick to the team, right, and do all these things, then there's no harm. But it should be a collective decision, it should be a team decision.
Yeah, just highlighting your point again, is whatever you can do with the resources that you have, and not putting your team in additional stress to make that point. So we have a question from Yom Chowdhury. How do we provide authenticity to companies regarding the FS community?
Yeah. So this is where brand comes into picture. If you have if you have strived to build a brand, right, then that is when you'll have a lot of real life engagements or real life development and updates of the design of the prototype, everything, right? So these are the things. Nobody can deny a real picture, right? Nobody can deny a real achievement or a real milestone, right? If you project all these things, if you are able to project the original work that you're doing, then there's no doubt other person could feel that it's not a strong community and all. And what you speak for should also be supported, should also be supported and backed up by your communication on the website, your communication on your social media, everything. So if some team reaches me and if I'm really interested in their proposal, immediately I'll go to their website. I'll see whether they are real faces on this, or whether they have previously participated in an event or not, whether they're sharing, some interesting stuff or not, whether they are smart or not as a team, not as an individual, right? If I have, check marks to all this, I'll definitely be interested in knowing more. I not doubt their credibility at all. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Akbar.
Hello.
Yes.
May I ask something?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm Yashvardhan from Team Kratos Racing. So my question to you is, how do we approach to companies that aren't related to the industry? like this is an autonomous automotive industry or related to electrical or electronics. So how do we go to companies which are not related to these kind of fields? Like if we go to pharmaceuticals, or if we go to oil exploration, or even suppose we say like Adani ports, like Adani ports is there in, I think so, Andhra Pradesh, I guess, and the Reliance ports is there in Gujarat Power. So how do we approach to companies which aren't related to the industries which we work on?
Exactly. So, of all the examples, you asked, let's take the most odd one, right? Let's say, how do we get McDonald's to sponsor you? Like just a hypothesis, right? McDonald's is something into eatery and teams are building into race cars. Say, assume that one of the McDonald's branches is maybe 5 to 10 kilometers away, right? Now, if you pitch its owner, or if you pitch the franchisee owner, telling him that, okay, why not create a win-win? We'll come up with some exclusive referrals for the students in our university, so that whenever they come in, they'll have, like, you can have a loyalty basis, right? On a loyalty basis, there'll be your customers acquired. So with this particular synergy, you can actually have new entrants, or new consumers for you, and particularly since we belong to the youth community. So in this manner, you have to phrase. Say, when you talk about Adani and all, that's a massive organization, right? So if an organization is that big, then you have to see, you have to hunt for their CSR strategy, CSR funds, CSR initiatives and all. In that form, you have to pitch. But you always have a case to strike a deal. As a student community, you belong to what do you say, one of the most important, crucial, and you guys are millennials, so you exist as a market together. Like if I'm even if it's my startup, I definitely like to collaborate with student bodies or organizations that directly have this human resource at one place, so that easier it will become for me. So yeah.
Thanks, Akbar.
So you talk,
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so you were talking about McDonald's. So see, if you are referring to McDonald's, it's world's largest chain of fast food. So it is quite relevant, and it is quite known to all of us around. But if we go to companies, like if we are even branding, suppose if I brand, suppose what we say, if I brand Sun Pharma, if we have received a sponsorship from Sun Pharma, and if I brand it in our car, so the views which the people view in our car, they'll see the brand Sun Pharma. So how they even come to know that what is this company? Why is this even related to this? Why are they sponsoring us? So the people who are seeing it, so they are getting confused, right? If I say Vedanta, so they don't know what Vedanta is. So we need to have an approach so that they also get to know us, and the people who are also seeing are also getting to know that what is their approach, or why they are even helping us. So that's what I'm asking. McDonald's is quite common around now. So
okay, fine. Yeah. So now the way you are asking, in this case, see, a company might sponsor you because you are a student team, as a student project, out of this CSR funds. Okay. Other, they might see a strategic benefit for them. That's why they might sponsor you. Third, they might see that you are part of a university. This is where, or like every sponsorer will have a different purpose for which he'd like to sponsor you. Not everybody will only be looking at having their stickers or logos exposed to some people or not. Sometimes they might do it for themselves, right? They might not be expecting, how you brand them or how you promote them. Rather, they'd be like, on their social media handle, they might put, okay, I supported, XYZ team. Which is a sign of good PR activity from their side. So the purpose might vary. Sponsorship, the terminology remains the same, but the purpose could be different.
all right, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We do have a few minutes left. There is a question in the chat box, and there are a couple of questions in the YouTube chat box. Do you have another 5 minutes, Akbar?
Yeah, definitely.
Great, thank you. So we have a question from Chirag. In types of sponsorships, you mentioned about sponsors related to merchandising. Can you elaborate more about it?
Yeah, for example, like, when it comes to sponsorships, merchandise is one thing that every team can offer, right? So when I say merchandising, so there could be companies who are working on caps, or who are working on, printing t-shirts, who are working on, say, wearable wristbands or these things, right? So if you directly tell them, say, if you sponsor us, tomorrow there'll be 100 other teams who will be running after you to do the same thing for them. Then you have struck a sponsorship deal with them. And it need not be like full-fledged, sometimes they might be like, okay, you need not pay us, we will, take care of all the expenses. Or they might be like, we'll give you 25% of discount. That is also a sort of a sponsorship, right? So yeah, that's what I meant by merchandise.
Great, thank you, Akbar. So we have one more question from Farhan. For first year students, what should be the minimum branding timeline before we go for the hunt of sponsorship?
Right. So the thing is, like, firstly, you have to get started, right? You cannot wait to become a brand and then reach out. So there's no timeline like that. So it's a continuous activity. It's an ongoing activity. While you keep building your brand, you have to simultaneously, reach out to other people and all, to see whether, until you reach out to people, you don't know what they'll point out and all, whether you are mature enough or not, right? As you keep doing this, you have to keep updating yourself. You have to keep engaging more with public and all. At one point, definitely somebody would be convinced based on the activities that you do. So there's no waiting for branding. It's a continuous process.
I completely agree with that. Branding, you build that along with time. You need to really start going to
Right.
sponsorship right away. And actually focus on that story of yours. Start with your story, and that's how you'd go ahead in terms of sponsorship. So
Right.
we have a question from Atharva Joshi. How do we approach small companies or industries, as they are also one of the, for main, as they are also worst affected in the pandemic? If I understood that question right.
Right. So if you're directly finding a company who is who is badly affected by a pandemic and all, I suggest, like, express a good concern to them, and don't reach out to them, at least for sponsorships and all. Right. Be very careful in whom you're trying to reach out. Make sure you understand them before. Right? Or if that particular MSME or that particular small scale business is doing well, if they're doing well, then go ahead, strike, tell them, okay, sir, your presence is amazingly felt in this particular region of this state. Why not make it known to others in other states? You know, uh, so you can pitch them like this.
Yeah, and also Akbar, what you mentioned in your earlier point, that you always keep the relationship even though they,
Yeah.
have not sponsored. If they cannot sponsor you that year, just send in, like always, reach out and say, just asking how they're doing and how is everything going, and that you express your concern during these difficult times. It's always that relationship
Right.
is always important.
Right. Right.
We have a question from Shreyash. It's not necessarily a sponsorship question. Um, but I'll still ask it, how to find vendors for Formula Electric parts in our country as a first year of the team. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
so this is something that you could always connect with other EV teams, especially in because Formula like electric has been quite recent in India. There are a lot of good teams out there who'll be willing to help you out with their vendor list, and I think that's the first way to approach it. What do you think, Akbar?
Right, right, definitely, definitely. So either you could, directly see, if you're trying to reach out somebody who's already selling it, if he is, good enough, he'll support you in kind. If he is not, one very unique way that you can do is, maybe you can try to reach out to full-fledged startups, because, say, for example, if there's an EV scooter startup, then uh, by any ways they'd be importing some components, they'll be testing some components and all. Why not reach them out, ask them, okay, why don't you share some of your resources and all. So you just have to figure out, different ways. Or there could be some e-commerce platforms like who are selling these components and all, and drop them a mail. There's no harm in trying to reach them out.
Great. We'll take one more question. How do we approach sponsors which are already sponsoring big teams present worldwide?
Right. So what happens is every big company, of course, if they're sponsoring big teams means probably they'll be really big companies. If they are really big companies, they'll have their geographical presence everywhere. Maybe somebody could have a headquarter in Delhi or Bangalore or Kerala and all. So accordingly, you try to reach them. Okay, because you know, uh, as a whole organization, when they try to compete with other organizations, they also have internal competitions. Okay, this particular department or this particular the assistant vice president of the South India is doing some really amazing work. So this will actually spark an interest in the North Indian head. So you try to figure out these patterns and then try to reach them out.
Great. So, Akbar, that's the end of our time with this session. I'd like to thank you thank you and Skillshark for this session. Especially sponsorship is such an important thing that participants and students have always talked about and always been concerned about um, because of the current pandemic and struggling through that. So thank you for your time and for sharing your experience over here as well. To our participants on the Zoom session and on YouTube, thank you for logging in on a Sunday. Really appreciate your time and your interest in the subject. We hope you subscribe to our channel if you like our series, and also follow us for more information on www.formulabharat.com/academy. Have a wonderful day, everybody.